when we talk about AI is artificial intelligence and essentially anything that appears to be intelligent, whether it is or it is not. So it's some sort of software program, platform that is trying to mimic or to imitate or to appear to be like human thought. The ones that we use primarily today are a subset of the broader artificial intelligence, and you will often hear them called LLMs, which is large language models. When you talk about ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, Gemini, all of these large language models. Well, what does that mean? It means that this is an artificial intelligence that is drawing on a kernel of knowledge. And that kernel of knowledge, in most cases, is all of the written content that is publicly available on the internet. Think about all of the written content that is available on the internet, and it will give you a little bit of pause when you go to a large language model and say, give me a definitive answer on this question. You've got everything on the internet from Shakespeare and Faulkner and Salinger and all of these wonderful literary references and books and tremendous things, all the way down to the trash posting on Reddit and people making fun of each other and just complaining about TV shows. All of that feeds into a large language model. Now, it's not going to access all of those sources every time you ask it a question or ask it for help, but just remember a large language model pulls from the good and it pulls from the bad, and it doesn't always have a great frame of reference for which is which. A concept with AI that is very common is what you'll hear referred to as AI slop. Because that large language model pulls from the good, the bad, and the ugly of the internet, the less information you give the large language model, the poorer a result that you're going to get. As a matter of fact, going back to Steve's day and age of large calculators, there is a concept in tech that is truer now than it has ever been before, and that's GIGO, stands for garbage in, garbage out. And essentially, it's as true with a large language model as it was with the old brick calculators. If you put in the wrong numbers, you're going to get the wrong answer on a calculator. Well, if you put in a bad input in an artificial intelligence, that artificial intelligence is going to very confidently give you a terrible result. And you'll often hear that referred to as AI slop. You see that people posting it on the internet, these AI slop posts that just kind of all look and sound the same. And it's a danger when you go to an AI to help you with Toastmasters things like writing speeches. So I'd like to show you a couple of tools. Most people tend to use either ChatGPT or Claude. I am most experienced with ChatGPT. I'm using Claude a little bit more, but I like ChatGPT because it has this Toastmasters specific GPT. The way you can find this, if you don't already have it located and pinned as I do, is when you go into your ChatGPT account, and you can do this from a free account, go to GPTs right here in the upper left, wait for the spinny circle of death to finish, and then you're going to go in and search, and assuming Toastmaster International is not the top result because you just searched it yesterday when you were rehearsing to do this presentation, you would type in something like Toastmasters and it'll probably, I mean, what else is going to come up? Now, when you locate this thing, you can see there's how many times people have used it, what kind of conversation starters it has on it, what kind of ratings people are giving it. There are plenty of garbage custom GPTs built on any of these platforms. This one obviously is a pretty good one. You can see the ratings, but if you go ahead and start a chat in that, it's going to pull that up. Now you can, it probably will not be on your pin section for you, so I can unpin it, you can pin it if you hit that little ellipsis right there. Right there. So what is this? Like, what does it do? What is it based on? A custom GPT, going back to the garbage in, garbage out, the more base information that you give to a large language model, the better result you're going to get from it. A custom GPT just means that somebody, Simon Ushkel or Hoishkel, whatever, in this case, has gone and built a model in this platform in ChatGPT that has a kernel of information on which it is based. I haven't talked to Simon about this. We should definitely hit him up. He's got his LinkedIn right there. What I would imagine he's put in there is some base information about Toastmasters, probably things like the structure of a meeting, the different roles within Toastmasters, the structure of a good speech. He may have a corpus or a kernel of 50 or 100 or a million great speeches from Toastmasters history to draw from. But there's some base of knowledge here so that you're not just going to new chat, a blank chat, which you can do, and just accessing all of the good, the bad, and the ugly of the internet. So when you go into the Toastmasters GPT, you can see they've already got a couple of queue up questions here. Can you improve my speech draft? Can you write a speech draft for me? Beware of that one. We'll get to that. Come up with table topic ideas. That's great. And evaluate my speech. Now, here's what you probably should not do. The way to get AI slop and to crank out a terrible speech that everyone hates is to go to it and say, hey, ChatGPT, I've got a speech that I have to do tomorrow, and I've really done nothing to prepare, and I don't feel like doing the work or rehearsing or anything like that. Can you write me a speech on clowns? Let's do that. Write me a 5 to 7 minute speech on clowns and enter. Do, do, do. Strong clown speech could be funny, personal, unsettling. Come on now. What should the audience remember most? So they've actually built this out. You can put this into just a regular chat and it will probably just go ahead and write it. I actually did this yesterday. There you go. Hey, we got a speech. Is the speech any good? Don't know. Probably 5 to 7 minutes. Hey, look, it's writing, it's writing, it's writing. Now, what you're going to find with this speech is there's all the hallmarks of AI slop. There's going to be some weird metaphors that don't make any sense. There's going to be a pattern of 3 things. We walk, we post, we perform. There's one right there. We learn. There's going to be some what they call expectation breaks. Yeah, there's going to be some weird conclusions. None of it's going to make any sense, but it's a confident 5 to 7 minute speech. And sure, you could print this off. You could stand up at the lectern. You could read this thing, and it would be hot garbage. It's not going to make any sense. Nobody's going to like the speech, and it's just going to be kind of a disaster. Now, to its credit, the Toastmasters GPT actually asked me for a little direction when I said, hey, write me a speech on clowns. And it said, what do you actually want to do with this? So that's probably something that Simon built in there. But a much better idea is to give it a little bit of guidance. So I've actually written out a couple of cues here, but one thing that you first might want to do is you might want to go on Pathways and figure out, well, what's my next speech supposed to be? You know, speeches on clowns are great, but what purpose does it serve? You go to Pathways here and you can see this is my actual Pathways account. See, Albert, right there. There's nothing hidden up my sleeve. And my next speech is supposed to be on mentoring. Now, I've already done a mentoring speech, so I'm going to use some of the things that I used for that as cues for this. But the first thing that you ought to do is go into Pathways and download the instructions for the project. Now, I've already done that. It's right here. And it's in PDF form. Now, I'm not that big a fan of PDF form. I understand why it exists, but it's kind of a pain to get the information off of it. But you know who's really good at getting information off of PDFs? ChatGPT. So what I want to do is give the GPT a little bit of background on me, a couple of ideas here, my name, a little background information. I lived in Australia as a young man, grew up in Ohio, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. But let's go ahead and add in those instructions. I've got that right here. And we'll say, give me 10 good ideas for my speech on mentorship. It's going to use this information right here to give a couple of ideas. It's going to access the instructions. And so we're going to use that. Now I'm using kind of a quick platform here so that this kind of rips out answers for us. You can use more advanced platforms depending on what level of that you pay for if you use the paid version. But here we go. Okay, the leader who taught me not to lead. Tell the story of a sea marine that showed you leadership is not always giving orders. Okay, it's not bad. First person who saw more in me than I saw in myself. Okay, not bad. Definitely got a couple examples of that. Mentorship across cultures, the things that I noticed in living different places around the world. I am your mentor, Luke. Difference between being trained and being mentored. That's a good idea. And these are somewhat AI is not particularly deterministic, which means you can give it the same input and it's going to give you different outputs depending on when you put it in or how much memory is in the chat. So these are actually slightly different answers than what I got yesterday when I practiced this. Mentor's greatest gift, permission to fail. Sounds like a good one. Invisible chain of mentorship. Okay. Now, the funny thing is, one of these is actually maybe the hardest advice I did not want to hear. That's actually kind of similar to the mentorship speech I did last year on my previous pathway on presentation mastery. So I'll actually use that one as a bit of an example. But what I generally try and do once I've got some ideas for the speech, and LLMs are great at giving you ideas, especially if you give them some guidance, is I'll actually take one of these ideas that resonates with me, and then I'll just take my dogs out for a walk. And I just start talking. So it's not that weird to be walking around talking to yourself these days because you just put the little microphone in and people think you're on a phone call. So not nearly as crazy as it used to be. But what I generally use is I've got these little wireless microphones. This is actually the cheaper version of the ones that I use in Toastmasters meetings. These were like 20 bucks on Amazon. But I use this, I clip it to a ball cap and have the receiver on the other end on my phone. So I'm trying to get that past my blur right there. And I'll just walk around with that in my pocket and start talking. And what comes out is no, not that, is a text input. So you download the transcript when you get home. And so I've got that right there, TM Mentorship Speech Brainstorm. Now I named it that. But just in the same chat, I'm going to upload that. And then this, I would normally type this, but I'm not going to victimize you by making you watch me type. So just take these thoughts, form them into a good mentorship speech according to the project directions. Now, the chat memory can get a little funky, so sometimes you might want to reattach the project directions, but 5 to 7 minutes with an attention gainer and a CTA, you don't necessarily have to have those, but I just want to see what would come out. And so what's happening here is taking, instead of saying, write me a speech on clowns or write me a speech on mentorship and just having it access internet crap and give me AI slop, what I said was, hey, I talked, I pull this up here, but I talked for probably better part of an hour, maybe not quite an hour, but I definitely gave it some good ideas, certainly enough for a 5-minute speech. And it's telling my stories. It's just taking them off of my rambling train of thought and organizing them into an actual speech with some points. A mentor doesn't have to be perfect. Hard work and importance are not always the same thing. He definitely taught me that. So I was talking about an officer that I worked for in Iraq, and some of the people in Toastmasters can tell you, I actually delivered a version of this speech. Now it's obviously just written a different one. But I did this brainstorm and I came back and I organized it into a speech. And then this is your content. These are your stories. These are your thoughts and your conclusions from those stories. You're just using an AI to clean them up a little bit. Now you can give the AI specific directions like don't fill in any gaps, use only my words. And I've done that on various occasions that will make it take a little bit longer. Okay. Now let's say I want to make it even better because that was one of the things that the GPT can do. Hey, take my speech draft and improve it. Okay. We're going to kick this up a notch. Evaluate my speech for use at a district speech competition. Suggest 5 improvements for me to make it a winner. Give me guidance for movement, hand gestures, and vocal variety or variation throughout the speech. Do your worst, ChatGPT. Here we go. It's a strong speech. Well, you wrote it. I'm just kidding. Yeah, build one fully dramatized scene. Yeah, so I mean, the story is pretty dry, and I think I got a similar result yesterday. The story is a little dry, and the speech was a little. It was more informative. It was more matter of fact. It was not something that I would definitely necessarily bust out for a competition because you got to leave them crying a little bit to win those things. So the more dramatic speeches generally seem to carry the day from what I've seen. So reduce the number of lessons. It's a little data heavy and you need a little bit more drama. Make the change more visible. You want to show some sort of arc. So these are all great. Yeah, I would absolutely take these to heart if I was going to try and take a version of this speech to a competition. Strengthen the emotional ending. Yep, leave them weeping in the aisles. And it's got stage movement. What do you do with your hand gestures? Vocal variety. Now, sometimes, especially with the kind of deeper thinking models, you can use different, depending on how much you've paid for with these large language models. This is actually my work, the enterprise level. So I've got some serious firepower here. But you can take these to give you more effort, better writing, access to more information. It will also take a little bit longer, and it will tend to come back a little bit more wordy. So there are quite a few times where I just don't want to read all of that stuff. So I will include in my instructions, hey, cap your response at 500 words or make it a 5-minute read or something like that. You can see it can get quite extensive, and I've had hour-long queries that came back with a 75-page response. Sometimes that's what I need for work, but yeah, certainly not in this circumstance. Okay. So that's basically my speech writing process. One word of warning. What I have found is the more you use AI to help write your speech, the harder it is to remember that speech. It's just something I've found with trial and error. If you've done 90% of the work and you instruct the AI to use almost exclusively your words and just fill in gaps where it needs a little smooth over, then you're going to remember the speech pretty well. If you say write me a speech on mentorship, enter, it's going to be very difficult to remember that speech because you don't have that creative spark of inspiration that came up in your own mind that created it. And so you're just not going to remember it very well. It's a weird thing with AI. Now, I have found for anybody that's experimenting with other platforms, I have found that Claude does write better than ChatGPT. You can also, ChatGPT recently split into 3 different models. If you want to change the model, I don't think the Toastmaster GPT has all of them available, but Soul is the highest level and the most creative one. But yeah, 5.6 Soul is the heavy hitter right now for OpenAI. Okay, so let's do what Walt did.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, I have a
What's
quick
the
answer.
difference in using Toastmaster International to write your speech other than the benefit of having pathways versus just using ChatGPT to help you formulate your speech?
Yeah. So the custom GPT from Toastmasters is starting from, it's not starting from zero. It's starting from some knowledge of Toastmasters. So I will actually hit up Simon, the guy that built this, and see if he'll answer a couple of questions about it. But what I'm assuming is he's at least uploaded some information about Toastmasters, some information about speech structure, some examples of great speeches, contest winners, maybe. When you go into this GPT and you start asking questions, you don't have to necessarily upload the Robert's Rules of Order and the structure of a meeting and things like that. You can just say, "Hey, I got table topics tomorrow. Topic is clowns. Can you give me 10 ideas for a table topic?" And it's not searching for what the heck is a table topic. It knows that already. And so he's built in some of the structure that you need. Whereas if you just go to new chat, it's just anything on the internet goes.
And
So
that it wouldn't, if you told it it was for Toastmasters, it still wouldn't be able to
it
pull.
would then you're giving it a little bit of information. You're giving it a head start.
Okay. Okay.
So
It'll be interesting to try like table topics,
yeah,
chat GPT versus TMI to see what
yeah,
happens,
absolutely.
see how they're different.
So I don't know exactly what prompt Walt used to help with being the Toastmaster, but it was probably something like this. I don't know if he did it like day prior, but I'm the Toastmaster for tomorrow's meeting based on the attached agenda, which we'll get to. Give me a good intro talk of 1 to 2 minutes, a script or playbook to be an effective master of ceremonies for the meetings, as well as a short closing and a solid intro for our speaker. Now, I haven't, the agenda for today had Tim as the speaker. I have not uploaded anything about Tim. Here's what I did notice when I was practicing this yesterday. When I uploaded this spreadsheet, it had trouble reading it. And I don't know if that's a characteristic of the Toastmaster GPT. I know that I have definitely uploaded many, many Excel spreadsheets to ChatGPT and it did just fine. But in that case, all you got to do is either convert it to a different format or just copy the information. So I've just pasted everything that was in that spreadsheet. You can see here's all of the stuff. There's a whole lot of junk you can slap into the chat and it will remember all of it. There's not really any memory issues. After a while, if you try and put like books of the Bible in there, it's eventually going to start going sideways. But
Well, what I liked about what Walt did is he took the quote of the day and built on that.
one more time, I didn't hear you.
What I liked about what Walt did is he took the quote of the day and
Yep,
built on that
yep,
instead of it just being random what happened
absolutely.
today.
And you could certainly use that as a specific instruction. I didn't say anything about using the word or quote of the day, but you can see right there, it seized on that as the centerpiece. And it says, and so it's built the opening talk on that. And then it tells you every time you got to stand up, introduce the education moment. It's even got a script for you. I mean, you can literally just read from this. I don't recommend that, um, but yeah, there you go. Even some kind of general pieces of advice. Watch the clock closely. You want to get it done by this time. All right. Now, I actually used this when I was a cantor for church, and I'm Catholic, so we have a lot of structure for the order of Mass. And I had to be a cantor without an accompanist, and I was not used to doing this. I wasn't 100% confident with when I had to get up and lead singing portions of the Mass. Went to ChatGPT and said, "Hey, it's the first Sunday in Lent. Here's the hymns. What am I doing? What do I need to look out for?" And it said, "Hey, watch the high note on this hymn." And stand up at this point and call the congregation to order. And yeah, it was fantastic. So that right there, I mean, you can literally just print that off or put it on your tablet or phone. And that is a guide for every time you got to stand up, introduce somebody, sit down. About table topics? Let's go ahead and reattach the agenda there. Okay, so I'm table topics for tomorrow's meeting. Based on the attached agenda, give me a good intro talk of 1 to 2 minutes. 10 great challenging table topics based on the date, theme, word, quote of the day, or anything interesting about the location or season or anything that tickles your fancy. Say, hey, I'm really want to do historical table topics or philosophical table topics or blah, blah, blah. There we go. Talking about the quote of the day again. Seems like it's really seizing on that. Which part of yourself have you had to conquer in order to grow? Tell us about a failure that eventually produced a splendiferous result. There you go. See, it's even helping you out with word and quote of the day. Look at that.
I don't know. I still like that list that Steve and John had that was 1 through 100 and
Yeah.
pick a number.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And absolutely. You could say, but you could give it any guidance you want. You could say, hey, I ignore the word and quote of the day. I don't like them. I don't know how to pronounce them. Um, and just say, I would love 10 10 table topics about mentorship. 10 table topics that will blow people's minds. 10 table topics that are based on my favorite movie quotes. I love Tombstone and Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. And anything that tickles your fancy.